Hello, hello. I'm the official name rater. You might also call me the official cringe channel because holy crap, already I'm upset because I look at this guy's stuff. Outside of reviewing cringe, what we're supposed to do is review the nicknames on the first page of Google provided by the internet, with today being the episode of Spheal, Sealeo, and Walrein. But we have to start with our daily dose of cringe. Tusk Ice. You guessed it, another wicked sounding nickname, as he says as he slides his cock right back into his mouth. It's garbage. I do consider sometimes that, maybe someone else could have used something like this for an official thing. And, that's possible. But they're always so garbage. They aren't even, good. Let's be honest, Squirt Turtle, that's not particularly good or fantastic, but you let it slide because it's the developers. As to where when someone tries to come up with something that's like a pun or it's clever, it has to be held to a higher regard. Kind of like the Ditto episode where we saw likewise. That was a good example of something that could be held in that regard, but it's actually good. Fang Pang, which is garbage. Walrus, which instead of just putting Walrein with extra L's to emphasize the joke, he's like, what if I spelled it out again because I'm a fucking moron? I hate him. And then Tuskwild, which he's like, well shit, I can't think of anything else, so let's just make all of them about his teeth. Like this! What the fuck?! I'll acknowledge John Lennon. I legitimately like the song I Am the Walrus. I don't really care for it as a meme or joke or whatever, but I mean, if you want to, sure. Importantly, put the full name, don't just put John. Who the fuck is John? I actually didn't expect to see this. This was one of those things, like I've said before in the past, where I'm like, oh, you think of it and it's so obvious, and then you look through the first page of Google and it's never there. This was one of those things where it's like the very first thing I thought of was Wazza from Banjo-Kazooie. I believe my brother used that. That's fine, I get that, but just because of the first instinct kind of thing, it's always kind of put me off. Just the only thing I can remember off the top of my head is Tubimora Toru for Hariyama. I don't think Wazza's probably a popular nickname. I'm sure this is probably the only time we're going to see it. But it is there. And I've thought about it. Alright, so I like this idea. I dislike that he changed it and was like, well, it's a guy, so it's gotta be spelled different. Fuck off. Unless you're Latin, it ending in an A doesn't make a difference. Okay, so I've actually just fucked myself up real quick. I just realized, I looked through my phone and I've realized I don't know any guys whose names end with the end A, and I think that's kind of a subconscious thing we actively still do even in the English language. Samantha, Amanda, Kayla, they still end with A. What the hell? Guys' names apparently don't end in A still. That's weird. Regardless, I do stand by the thought that, even if your Walrein's a dude, you can still call it Fendrana. What I was trying to get on the thing of getting to before the whole gender thing fucked me up is I like the idea of, firstly, Metroid junkie, so almost anything Metroid is going to get a thumbs up for me. But, even if you're, limited to enemies, you can still do locations. If you want to... I had a placeholder nickname of Arctera that I used for my Auroras because I couldn't think of anything. I'm pretty sure I have Fendrana written down because those are just unique sounding names that you could use for nicknames. So that gets a pass for me. You could throw it onto just about any ice type and it'll work perfectly well. I asked a friend to help me with male names that end with A, and she said Joshua. So they do exist. She also put a bunch of random shit like Mufasa, Urza, and Dakota. Those are not normal names, but they exist. See, Iceal is kind of along the wavelength of something you could expect a legitimate developer to use for a name, but it still doesn't mean that's the best for a nickname. Alright, so I'm not into World of Warcraft, but just the name kind of stands out as, I'm gonna say, decent, and also just, it makes a World of Warcraft reference. It also kind of makes me curious and think about what other games have referential walruses, and the first one I could think of is Tropical Freeze, And then I think Mario and Rabbids also. I mean, it wasn't technically a walrus, but it was close. I'm pretty sure the Mario and Rabbids one didn't have a good name. And as far as Tropical Freeze, I don't quite remember the names of the bosses, but just calling them Snowmad isn't the worst. Like, it's a solid 3 out of 10. Tuskar's decent, though. Alright, so this is one of those unintentional things where I read something, and their answer isn't what I'm looking for, but it made me think of something else. I don't know, maybe it's just because he put an M right next to it, but after seeing Big Blue, I was like, Blue Meanie. And Blue Meanie kind of works as like a fat joke, but also, I mean, you could kind of use Blue Meanie on other blue Pokemon if you wanted to. I don't think it's the worst thing, and it definitely stands out, and it fits the character limit. So, yeah, if you don't know, he's a very old school wrestler. Going to acknowledge Isurus just to further the point that, like, this could have been a thing that, like, an actual developer, like the Pokemon team, could have made. Like, it's of that quality, but it's still not good. It's not spectacular enough to be like, oh, I really like this. But, like, it's, regardless, these examples that I've been highlighting are, like, leagues above the name raider idiot, the Tumblr idiot. And then Titanic, we've seen this a bunch of times in the past. I think, honestly, a fatty ice Pokemon's not the worst. I guess Avalugg would be a good one if you wanted to use that as a joke for sinking the Titanic. Regardless, we've seen Titanic a couple times, whether or not you want to reference the ship or just Titanic as in large in nature. Both of those are fine. I have no idea what sort of cringe I just stumbled upon, but I wanted to share it with you. It's a random generator. Killer Walrein. Black Panther. Nothing to do with Walrein. Dark Warrior. God. Hungry a Killer Walrein. Like, what the hell is this? This feels like Nick Finder, but worse. Alright, well, that's the bottom. Pretty sure this isn't relevant at all. And then pretty sure that's not relevant at all, so I'm not gonna fuck with them. And then scrolling up to the top, should we clicked on everything? Here's the spreadsheet. Oh, look, a hot fucking pile of nothing because the guys who made the spreadsheet hate Hoenn, I guess. I don't know. I already forgot the name, but Tuskar, I think it was? Whatever the World of Warcraft one it was, I like that one. I wouldn't use it because I'm not a World of Warcraft fan, but I did like that name and thought it was pretty good. Waza, I figured was worth highlighting just because, you know, that was one of those things that, like, my mind first went to. I know my brothers did. I was kind of surprised to see it. And then Phendrana, which I saw twice, which I'm assuming it was on the Reddit thread and on Pokemon.net. So one person got it from the other. Because they were both Phendranas, so I'm willing to bet the Reddit guy copied the Pokemon.net guy. Regardless, Phendrana is perfectly fine the way it is. You don't need to fucking change it. You don't need to worry about it being a male. Who gives a fuck? It's fine. That's the kind of shit I hate when it comes to nicknames. Is, oh, it has to be this. If it has to be it, it's a bad idea. Fuck off. Other words, that's it. Any and all suggestions you can think of, provide in the comments below. I personally don't have a recommendation. I haven't come across one that I was in love with, haven't thought of one. I kind of use this show as an excuse to, like, find stuff instead of looking on my own. Like, right now I'm going through Platinum and I've got a Garchomp, and I haven't even bothered looking up nicknames because I'm like, I'll just figure it out when I eventually reach that episode. So, it'll be fun. Ideas and suggestions down below. Give a thumbs up to the ones that you think are good. And yeah, it's good to be back.